Jeff Richardson invites you to listen to Foolish Wits, the only show where two funny leftists talk Shakespeare, comedy, writing, social issues, and more. Find out more at jeffsawesomepods.com. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Some Spoiled, a Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host Switcheroo, the rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO spoiler edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV. Yada, yada, yada. We are covering chapters 24 and 25, Bran and Davos. In these chapters, Bran gets told a story, which Jojen keeps saying, Your dad didn't tell you this? Your dad really should have told you this. And Davos has a confrontation with Melisandre. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now, kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
All right, so I asked Owen if he wanted to listen to the audiobook with me the other night, and he was like, but it's a Bran chapter. I don't like those. But then when I actually listened to this on my own, this is like a pretty interesting Bran chapter. I really like the story of the tourney at Harrenhal. I always find kind of compelling, especially it's so weird the way that it's told because it's all sigils instead of names, you know? But what did you think about this?
You know, so it's a weird thing for me because a lot of the stuff that we get in these books, I just don't remember, you know, until they come back up later and someone generally has to be like, well, remember when that, and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I get it, oh, you know, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So I'm listening to the story, I'm reading the story that Meera is telling, and there's a part of my brain that is 100% sure I know what this is. But then there's another part of my brain that's like, do you? Do you know what this is? Or are you connecting the wrong dots? Right? So what I ended up having to do while I was reading this story was kind of be like, all right, well, what are the things that seem very, very obvious? And we'll just worry about those things.
Okay. That is
right?
fair.
So the tournament at Harrenhal is a story that we have been told before a bunch of times, right? And that is why I'm like, I know this story.
Okay.
But then the way that Meera is telling it, where she's not using all the names that I'm used to hearing to make sure that I am really hearing the story that I think I'm hearing, made me be like, well, maybe she's talking about something that happened way before.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's a weird place for me to be. But what I thought of this story was, it was really neat that, like, trying to figure out, even though I don't think I was successful, trying to figure out who everybody is in this story as she's telling it.
Yeah.
And the mystery knight. Who is the mystery knight? I'm just going to come out and ask.
That's her dad.
Okay. Does she know it's her dad?
Yeah, I think
she's
so.
telling the story, right? Okay. All right. So that makes sense too when I think about it. That's fine. Okay. And Bran, when Jojen keeps asking him about your dad telling you this story, and Bran keeps being kind of like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Is that because Bran is like me and he doesn't realize he's hearing the same story, or is it because she hasn't given him the same name so he doesn't recognize it, or is it that he really didn't tell the story?
I think that Bran knows the story, but I think what Jojen is these fucking sirens.
Oh my God, you guys! Maybe that fire horn that we heard before we started recording was real.
Oh my, y'all, we were
making
to
all
start,
these jokes,
and then it just goes. And I was like, "All right, well, hold on. I'm not doing the intro over that, but it still caught us. It still did it."
I feel bad now for making all those jokes.
But the thing about this is that it's focusing on Howland Reed, which is not the way the story has been told to Bran before. And also, I think that what Jojen is really asking is, has Bran processed the like information about the tourney and what it means potentially for Jon? Because I think that Jojen has figured that out over time, you know.
So he's digging to see if, like you said, if Bran has made those connections. Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe also trying to find out if Ned had just talked to his children about this in any real way.
Yeah. I think that he kind of like disapproves of the fact that Ned didn't share any of this information in a way that made it like seem relevant. It's just so much a story to Bran.
Yeah, and it definitely feels like there's some judgment from Jojen.
Yeah. So, and I do like hearing about it from the perspective of their dad, because like he is having a very different experience than everybody else who comes to this place. Yeah.
I like the way she told the story. It's so, you know what's funny too? When, what are the words I'm looking for? It's so different. The way she tells the story is so different from the way I've heard it told before, that was one of the reasons why part of my brain was like, this has to be something different. You know, like the entire energy of the story is so different.
Yeah.
That I really was like, well, this has got to be a different circumstance. And tourneys are like a dime a dozen. So like, I was like, well, maybe it just is, you know, same location, but not exactly the same story. Maybe this happened years before the one that I'm familiar with happened, you know? Because honestly, like, between me, you, and the people that are listening, like, how many different ways can a tourney go? You know, there's always going to be somebody defeated. There's going to be a, you know, queen of love and beauty. Somebody's going to get a favor. Somebody's going to get knocked down, you know? But the thing about, what does Meera say when, at the end of the story, and Bran is like, oh, he should have won, and he should have got, you know, the queen, and she says something like, well, yeah, that did happen, but it's a much sadder story.
He says something like he should have gotten to crown the queen of love and beauty, and she says like, oh, she was crowned, but that's a different, sadder story. Yeah,
he's like the crowning man should have killed them all, and the ransom was stupid. The mystery knight should win the tourney, defeat every challenger, and name the wolf maid the queen. Mm-hmm. And and then I was like, yeah, it's that story.
It's that story.
But it took that's like the last paragraph of the chapter. So, you know, it took me till then to get the confirmation. I liked also this description of their journey and this stranger that they meet. They have been traveling all this time and haven't really seen any other people, which, you know, that was portrayed in the show for the most part. You know, a lot of the Bran storyline, they didn't really run into other people, and when they did, it was, you know, really dangerous for the most part, from what I remember.
Yeah.
So them meeting this man who never tells them who he is, but Bran sort of, you know, assumes based on, I think, this little clasp he's keeping his cloak on with. Bran assumes that, you know, he might be one of the Littles. And they meet this really nice man who offers them shelter and then feeds them and tells them a little bit about what's kind of been going on in the world, because they've been so disconnected from the events of everything else in the story.
Yeah.
And there was another moment, too, I think at the very beginning of the chapter, where Bran is thinking about Osha and Rickon and Shaggy Dog, and thinking to himself, like, hopefully they're, you know, at the Great John's fire, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
nope, that's not that. And then and there's one other thing he thinks of, maybe where they are. In White Harbor.
Oh, right.
With the Manderleys, and you have to you're just like, yeah, no, that's probably not it either.
These poor kids. But okay, all right. I want to back up a little bit. So we had the beginning of this. They're just on the traveling and talking about like how sort of miserable it can be sometimes. I love that Meera is just like, I hate these fucking mountains. And he's like, you said yesterday you love these mountains. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, well, but wait. And she's like, yeah, it's both. I love and hate them. It's fine.
Bran is insisting. This comes up like in the fucking next chapter too, right? Bran is like, they can't be the same. You can't like them both because they're so different. And of course he's like night and day and ice and fire. And then here comes Jojen. If ice can burn.
Yeah. Okay. It says, if ice can burn, said Jojen in his solemn voice, then love and hate can mate. What? I don't feel like that's substantiated, sir. This hypothesis needs further research, and I do not approve it. It just doesn't, that's a leap. That's a leap that we're making that doesn't feel valid.
The mountain or marsh, it makes no matter. The land is one.
That's not what we're talking about, though.
Right? It's like, how did we get to... We weren't talking about the land, though. But then I guess in Jojen's defense, all this started because Meera is talking about mountains. So I guess.
The whole thing just sort of felt a little bit like... You're having a whole other conversation in your head, and you're just trying to sort of link it to what they're talking about because you feel left out.
It's like he got an internal alert. It's like cryptic. Say something cryptic right now.
Oh, I really like that. This is the cryptic button. This is activated once every hour and a half or so. So. There's a moment where we hear, if we took the King's Road, we'd be to the wall by now. And apparently, they are a little bit sick of fucking hearing this.
Yeah, a little bit.
And they start to make fun of him, or Meera does, over the fact that he just cannot seem to stop repeating this over and over again.
I like that he tries to switch it up a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
So it'll turn to like from we'd be there by now to we wouldn't be so hungry. Yeah.
Nice try. We know what you're up to, though, kid. Not fooling anybody. And we get some talk too that I didn't really like remember or think about, but I thought was a really good detail to add, which is to say that the traveling that they have to do, because they can't just cross mountains really just cut across a mountain. They can go up into mountainous terrain for a time if they have to, but there's so much that they're able to do with the equipment that they have and not be in danger, that they often go in a certain direction because that's just the way the land runs to be crossable, and that it can be really they're going in the exact opposite direction of where they need to go, and how frustrating that can be. And it just feels like a waste of time. And I was just getting extremely frustrated on their behalf listening to this, because I was like, man, traveling just sucks anyway. It's just by default, traveling blows. And adding in the fact that you're going to have to go in these weird roundabout ways so that you don't wind up like it just that makes me itch. It makes me anxious just to think about. You know, I don't like it.
Yeah, it definitely lends a lot of sort of frustration to their story because we want them and they want to get to a place, you know, like they're traveling to a specific destination, which is a little bit different than some of our other POVs that we're in, you know. Some of our other POVs are people who aren't really doing as much traveling anymore, or they're traveling like as part of like a war vanguard or some kind, you know.
Right.
But like Arya is traveling with this group of people, and they're going someplace, but it's not the place our character wants to go, you know?
Yep.
But they are trying to get to a specific place for a very particular reason. They know where they want to go, and yet they're forced to do this sort of roundabout way of traveling. And this reminder, which is something I didn't really get a lot of in the show, this constant reminder that our people don't always know the direction they're traveling in is really appreciated and really lends something to the story overall, because it can be difficult to imagine anymore that people used to just go in a direction and like fucking just hope for the best. Yes. Like, you know, it's unimaginable anymore. But yeah. And a lot of times I think when we're watching, you know, not just the show, but, you know, watching anything, there's not really a lot of time for just aimless wandering around when you're trying to tell a story in like an hour and a half. You know, so everything can feel like our characters always know what they're doing. They always know where they're going. They're going to get to where they're headed because that's how the story goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, guys. Sometimes you spend 4 days walking up a mountain and you got to turn around and walk right the fuck back down because you can't get past.
I swear to God.
You know?
That just makes me so... I can't emphasize enough how anxious it makes me to just know that there's like a possibility of a complete waste of a day's, 2 days, maybe walking and struggling.
It's walking too, which I think is very important to remember, because, you know, driving the wrong way and walking the wrong way are two very different experiences with different levels of frustration and wanting to just chuck everything, you know. Like, quite frankly, I think I would have told the Reeds that that's just it for me. I'm just going to camp out here now. This is where I live now.
Oh, man. I would just... There's so much about living in this, like, kind of universe that I realize I am such a little bitch. I just have a lot of, like, moments of, wow, I have it so easy. Yeah. And I am very used to having it so easy.
They aren't even eating.
Right?
Or, like, to be filled anymore. You know, at this point, the travels have taken them up to the mountains where their access to catching food is just not what it was in other areas. All this fishing they were doing, you know, fucking Summer was bringing something home to eat every night like it was McDonald's. It's just like that shit is just not happening anymore.
Oh my God. Got a McDonald's wolf at home.
Oh, that was really good.
And yeah, they're talking about too, like, do the mountain people know we're here? And Bran's like, oh yeah. Oh, they're aware. Because it is indeed, when he's in Summer's eyes, he can see them watching. And this one guy that they run into, I don't know if he's considered a mountain person. I don't know how that works. But yeah, it's interesting to me, the idea of just like, well, we're being watched and we know we're being watched, but as long as we don't steal, they're not going to do anything. And man, that is so, I mean, I like that he has this certainty around it. He seems very confident about it. But there is something about knowing that you're being watched and you haven't actually spotted anybody yourself, like Jojen and Meera haven't. Bran has, but he just tells them when they ask. He hasn't even mentioned it on his own. That would also make me very itchy. Just being watched is not something that's fun, and you can feel it happening a lot of the time, you know?
Yeah. It's when I was reading it, I had like a couple of different reactions all at the same time. One was just how unnerving it would be to know everything you just mentioned, like that people are watching you travel through their area and they're not coming out and making themselves known. So you don't really know for sure what their intentions are. You know, are they hiding for their own self-preservation? Are they hiding because they don't know what we're doing? Are they hiding because they're going to jump out behind, from behind the next tree, And then also, like, we're children. One of us is being carried. Maybe somebody could, like, offer us a bed to sleep in or some food or something. And then the fact that they're not offering is kind of suspicious. And then you just kind of go in a loop. Maybe they're not offering because they don't have anything to spare. Maybe they're not offering because they were afraid, It just is all very, very unsettling.
Yeah.
I like, too, that, what was it? When they're in with the guy whose name we don't find out. And he tells them that... starts talking about how the world has changed since there's not a Stark in Winterfell. And yeah, that was obviously, like, I think Bran says something like he feels like the guy was looking him dead in the face when he said it.
Yeah, he says something like there are flayed men that are looking for information about a little kid that happens to be traveling with a giant and his wolf or something like, and he like looks, and it feels much more like what he's trying to say is be careful that people are like going to be offered rewards to turn you in. But there was something for a moment that made me go, oh no, is he like threatening them? Bless you.
Thank you.
But there was something for a moment that made me go, oh no, is he threatening them? Is he like trying to tell them, hey, you should probably pick up the pace because I'm about to go and tell them because I'm going to get something out of it, Yeah. And
it's so like, this is one of those things that like sets the mood. When he starts to talk about all this, he also pulls his knife out to whittle, which granted, it's just whittling, but also you pulled a knife out.
And like, I don't know, maybe that doesn't come with the same kind of, because like knives are used for everything in this universe, so it's not taken the same way, but you try and talk to me. Oh, here it is. The bastard's boys, the flayed men. He was dead, but now he's not. And paying good silver for wolf skins, a man hears, and maybe gold for word of certain other walking dead. He looked at Bran when he said that, and at Summer stretched out beside him. That's what it was.
Yeah. Oh, and I loved it because you and I had a conversation about when we read Sam's chapter about fucking what is everyone going to think when all these ravens show up with no messages.
I had forgotten this got explicitly addressed. And he's just like, yeah, all these ravens came back, and there was like a message or two, but a dozen ravens, which I feel like is worse than a bad message. Yeah. I was like, that is the correct way to interpret that.
Yeah, so like news that the guys left in Night's Watch is traveled now. People know that Mormont took a group to leave the wall, and now people know that they didn't fucking make it back.
Yep.
So some of the information is starting to trickle down to other parts of the realm, and it is it's not mentioned at all, which I thought was odd. But, there's a lot going on in Bran's head. He doesn't think of Jon when he hears this message. Or doesn't mention him anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he doesn't think Jon's, like, out amongst the Rangers and stuff. But, yeah, it's weird that he doesn't even, like, occur to him.
Yeah. But, oh my God, there's a conversation too because talking about dreams between Jojen and this stranger. Because he's talking again about like how different everything is when Starks were at Winterfell, but the old wolf's dead and the young one's gone south to play the Game of Thrones, and all we have are the ghosts. And Jojen, I love to. Can I just mention? Every time Jojen speaks, it's described as solemnly.
Oh my God! I didn't realize that it's that frequent. Because the quote I just read says that, but that's funny actually.
But so he says, the wolves will come again, and he tells the guy that he dreamt it, and the guy is just, oh, I dreamt of my mother, but she's been dead, she ain't come back. And Jojen says, there are dreams and dreams. And then, like, that's it. That's like, conversation's done. Yep. We're not going to talk about it anymore.
Jojen has a kind of confidence to his thing that I really appreciate, because sometimes when you've got a character that's like a seer in this way, it can be kind of they're trying to like decipher what it is they've seen, and there's a sort of uncertainty to them. But Jojen is just like, this shit means what the fuck I said it means. I don't want to argue about it. I don't even want to talk about it any further. I said what I said.
He's like that fucking go argue with your mama meme. Like, he's just like not like entertaining any back talk, any sass, any follow-up questions. The matter is just closed. And then we find out, I don't know if we knew this or not, but Hodor's real name is mentioned. And they start talking about Old Nan, which is, I think, how we end up getting Meera to tell us the stories, because Bran ends up asking them right out, like, do you guys know any stories? Which, also, I feel like this should have come up ages ago.
Yeah, you're right,
We've been walking a long time. Somebody should have been telling stories. What the fuck have y'all been doing all this time?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So, right. When he asks about Old Nan, he says something like Theon wouldn't hurt her, and Meera has to be like, dude, he's not the one that fucking killed everybody. It was a bunch of squids that were dead. Theon is not responsible. So whether he would or not is sort of irrelevant, because that's not what's happening here. But, yeah, he asks for stories. I love that at one point she says something about, like, the men were all asking for the favors of the ladies, and Jojen does, like, a Princess Bride, like, is this a kissing book? Which I did find pretty funny. And she's just like, how about you shut the fuck up and let me fucking talk? She starts to get a little bit, like, at one point he's like, so when does he meet whatever? And she's like, sooner than he would if you would shut the fuck up. But yeah, so we get the Crennig man who is traveling to this place. He's trying to find the Isle of Faces, and he goes out seeking it. And the Isle of Faces, for your reference, is, and this is from notes from Austin. He sent me quite extensive notes for these. Thank you, Austin. But the Isle of Faces is like one of the few places that's not like strictly in the north that still worships the old gods, and it's called that because there's tons of weirwood trees, and you know how weirwoods have like faces carved into them. So that is where that comes from. But it is supposed to, and it says Austin's telling me it was the place where the first men and the children of the forest signed their peace treaty. So that's interesting. I didn't even recall that, but
when the story starts and it says that he went to the Isle of Faces, Bran immediately is like, no one goes there.
Bran really thinks he knows. Get the hell out of here with your assumptions, sir.
And so the way he's like, that's where the green men live, and I was like, wait, is this a real place then? Or is this part of just like mythology? But I guess this is an actual location. Yeah. Whether or not the green men still live there or not. But this is a real place. Okay.
Correct. And then he asked, did he meet the green men? Yes, but that's another story and not for me to tell. And I was like, well, I really want to know that one though. Please go over and tell that one. But finally,
I love this too. She's like, you asked for knights. And he's like, but the green men are all right. We might hear that story.
So he winds up at Harrenhal and sees all of this like activity, tons of people, banners, food, yada yada yada. There's the king, and it says the white swords had come to welcome a new brother to their ranks. The Storm Lord was on hand, and the Rose Lord as well. The great Lion of the Rock had quarreled with the king and stayed away, which is Tywin being pissed that Jaime's joining the king's guard.
Mm-hmm.
But many of his bannermen and knights attended all the same. The Crannogmen had never seen such pageantry, and he knew he might never see the like again. And he wants to be part of it. So, the daughter of the great castle reigned as Queen of Love and Beauty when the tourney opened. 5 champions had sworn to defend her crown. And this is when he starts to be like, oh, brother, this is about girls.
So the daughter of the great castle is who reigned as Queen of Love and Beauty is who?
Let's see if Austin tells me, because I don't remember how this goes. I don't see a specific reference to who it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that's going to be the daughter of Harrenhal, whoever that was. And then she brings with her some of her homegirls, who are all very pretty. And one of them is the wife of the Dragon Prince. So that is that Elite? What's her name?
Wait, which one?
The one that's described as one of the women that accompanied the daughter of the castle is described as the wife of the Dragon Prince. So that's Elia?
Is it Ilya? Or I thought that was... oh, no.
Who is...
Ashara Dane is married to... Okay, yeah. So, Ilya? Is that who you're referring to?
That's just what I'm asking.
I'm trying to like keep track of
married.
everybody, because I'm looking at the notes as well, which is like sort of confusing my brain listening to you at the same time as trying to put this together. But other than like just reading the notes out, and they don't necessarily answer the question specifically.
Got you.
But and I said something to you in the Dresden Files episode that we recorded about how Robert had been called the Laughing Storm, and I got that wrong. That's Robert's like ancestor, like his great 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 grandfather, who was called the Laughing Storm. Which is a shame, because I wanted to be Robert, but what can you do? And I apologize to everybody who is like, I can't understand how you're hosting a show about this and you don't know who Rashawn is asking about, but here I am. It's the reality we all must live with. So
I'm just assuming that's who it was, because if this is the story of Ned's sister, then and the Dragon Prince, who would be, was it Rhaegar? Then Rhaegar was married to the Dornish woman, right?
Right.
And that's who he kind of...
So that is Ilya. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So they're all here.
All right.
The gang's all here. Okay. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, sorry. We were kind of like trying to identify too many people at once while I was still working on another one. So he comes up and gets attacked by several of the squires from House Frey. And then this she-wolf shows up.
Fucking, how about Bran calling it was the fucking phrase, too? Soon as he hears about it. What they Walters? Because this sounds like some shit that they would do.
Yep. I just love that the phrase "ain't been shit,
Right?
ain't gonna be shit." That is what their whole deal is.
Motherfuckers stay on brand. There's just like no switching it up. Not trying to try nothing new. Not trying to fool anybody. Ugh, the worst. For generations.
So, this she-wolf comes in and lays into them with a tourney sword and says, "This is my father's man you're kicking." And she took him back to her lair to clean his cuts and bind them with linen. There he met her pack brothers, the wild wolf who led them, the quiet wolf beside him, and the pup who was youngest of the four. And it says, under Harren's roof he ate and drank with the wolves and many of their sworn swords besides. The dragon prince sang a song so sad it made the wolf maid sniffle. But when her pup brother teased her for crying, she poured wine over his head. So yeah, this is all Lyanna, and she sounds delightful. She really has an Arya vibe to her. And the Krennic man saw a maid with laughing purple eyes dance with a white sword, a red snake, and the Lord of Griffins, and lastly with the quiet wolf, but only after the wild wolf spoke to her on behalf of a brother too shy to leave his bench. So that's Ashara Dane, and the people that she dances with are Oberyn Martell, John Connington, who is the one that is murdered at the start of the series, and Ned.
Wait, John who?
John Connington, the husband of Lysa Stark, who gets
John
murdered.
Aaron?
What? I said
John Aaron?
Oh,
Who's
no,
John
this
Connington?
is a different John. Oh my God. I'm gonna get so much heat. I'm gonna pause this so I can edit it. That I found interesting, that Ned had his eye on Ashara Dane a little bit. I was just kind of like, yo, what's up?
I feel like we haven't heard any of that before, right?
I don't remember. So there is somebody that a lot of people suspect that John's mother actually is, and people thought it might be Ashara. People thought Ned cheated on Catelyn with her because he was into her before they ever wound up together, and that's who John's mother secretly is. But it's not we never really get a fleshed out story about his feelings for her or a relationship that might have been established before his brother died and he wound up sort of marrying Catelyn out of duty. So I am very, very curious about that, and I don't think we'll ever get any story about it because it's she's gone. Ned's so tight-lipped, he probably never told anybody almost anything. But I do really want to know what Ned's like when he's in love versus when he's doing something because that's what he's honorably bound to do, you know?
Right.
I mean, he grew to love Catelyn. It's very clear that they had a genuine affection between each other, but it's different, when it's something that gets sort of developed because of circumstances forcing that to happen versus he saw her across a crowded tourney room.
Right.
So this is when the Krennic men notices that they are indeed Freys. And the girl points them out to the boys, and the youngest says, I could find you a horse and some armor that might fit. And he's torn because a part of him is I would love to fuck these guys up so bad. But he also isn't big, and he isn't super practiced. He isn't a lancer. And so he's not sure that if he went for it, he wouldn't just fucking humiliate himself even further. And that's a tough place to be.
Yeah.
So we get the daughter of the castle was the Queen of Love and Beauty with 4 brothers and an uncle to defend her, but all 4 sons of Harrenhal were defeated on the first day. Their conquerors reigned briefly as champions until they were vanquished in turn. As it happened, the end of the first day saw the Porcupine Knight win a place among the champions, and in the morning of the second day, the Pitchfork Knight and the Knight of the Two Towers were victorious as well. So these are all of the dudes that, like, fucked him up. And then a mystery knight appears in the lists.
I love to. There's a little bit where I think Bran is just like either thinking to himself or says out loud or something, but he's just like, yeah, there's always a mystery knight.
With helms concealing their faces and shields that were either blank or bore some strange device. So the mystery man shows up, and he thinks it's the Crannogmen. And Meera's like, well, nobody knew, but they were shorter than most knights, and they were in weird armor that didn't fit super well. And the device upon his shield was a heart tree of the old gods, a white weirwood with a laughing red face. And the suspicion most people have is that in fact was Lyanna, not the Crannogmen.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Because she wouldn't have been allowed to, do this. But the mystery knight dipped his lance before the king and rode to the end of the lists where the 5 champions had their pavilions. And he challenges those 3. The old gods gave strength to his arm, and they all fall before him. None were well loved, so the common folk cheered lustily for the Knight of the Laughing Tree. When his fallen foes sought to ransom horse and armor, the Laughing Tree spoke, saying, teach your squire's honor, that shall be ransom enough. Once the defeated knights chastised their squires sharply, their horses and armor were returned, and so the little Crannogman's prayer was answered, by the green men, or the old gods, or the children of the forest, who can say? And then Bran's like, so did the Knight of the Laughing Tree win the entire tournament and then marry a princess? And she's like, not exactly. And the king is like, you've got to find out who that is because clearly they're a threat to me. But the next day when they're about to like go and find out who it is, only 2 champions show up. The Knight of the Laughing Tree has disappeared. And the king is very pissed off and tries to send people to find them. It says he sent his son, the Dragon Prince, to seek the man. But all they ever found was his painted shield hanging abandoned in a tree. And further notes from Austen, fans suspect that this was the first time she and Rhaegar met, that he did catch up with her and unmask her and let her go. And then the next day, Rhaegar wins the tourney, but he names not his wife as the Queen of Love and Beauty, but Lyanna Stark.
Mm-hmm.
And that causes some issues.
It does. There end up being consequences.
I have to mention this. This is somebody who might suddenly get an influx of followers and wonder why. But there is somebody on Twitter who goes by the handle Queen of Love and Booty. And I swear to God, I love me a punny like Instagram or Twitter handle. I think they're so funny. I'm not creative enough to really come up with a good one. But every time I see Queen of Love and Beauty, I think Queen of Love and Booty. And I'm just like, that's right.
Some people are just so good.
And also, Barristan the Bold apparently entered this at the age of 10, the tourney.
Yes.
So that's why he got called Barristan the Bold. Delightful. So yeah, this is not part of this story, but it's Bran thinking about it because I was like, Barristan's age wouldn't match up. But yeah, that's because it didn't happen here. Barristan the Bold twice donned a Mystery Knight's armor, the first time when he was only 10. It ends with Bran being like, they managed to turn the Crannogman into a knight, even if it was only for a day. Which is sort of funny because it does not seem like that's what happened. but that's what he assumes for sure, that it was the Krennic man.
Right. I mean, some of the story. You mean like Bran? You mean Bran assuming that the Krennic man won the tournament?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I liked it a little bit. Like, there's a couple throwaway lines that sound like this is the beginning of the friendship between Ned and Howland Reed. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of sweet when you think about it. Like the little line about like the Quiet Wolf offered to let him share his tent with him. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, that does sound like something Ned would do.
It does.
I really like this idea that it was Lyanna in the as the Mystery Knight.
Yeah, that's fun, right?
It is fun. It is. You said earlier how all of this has like a lot of Arya energy to it, and it really, really does. And I was thinking we were talking at the beginning of this about like Jojen asking over and over like, did your father not tell you this story? And thinking, like, what a great story this would have been for Arya as well.
Yeah.
Even if... Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, even if it turns out that, like, Ned didn't know it was her, okay, I get that. But the other bits of the story of her are just as great, Yeah. So even if Ned doesn't know that she's the one that was in the tournament, so he couldn't tell Arya that, the bit about, like, coming to Howland's defense, standing up for herself, to her brothers, like, all of that is really good shit. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you share that?
Agreed. Yeah, and it's interesting because... the whole thing with Jojen being like, didn't your dad tell you this? I feel like that's a major part of it, is that the fact that he keeps saying, oh, it was the Krennic man. And Bran is looking at him like, no, it's not. Wait, I thought that you would know this part, Mm. But, all right, so then we go over to Davos's chapter. So Davos is in a cell, and it does suck. But he goes to some pains to note it doesn't suck as bad as it could suck.
Yeah, yep. He is like really faithful and loyal to what is starting for me to be uncomfortable.
Wait, you mean like in his loyalty to Stannis is uncomfortable?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. Like, even at this point in his career where he has been jailed for treason, he is still faithful and ultimately concerned about Stannis' well-being and how that is, under threat as long as Melisandre is around, according to Davos. Mm-hmm. When it really comes to a head at the end, when the Hand ends up being jailed, and I loved it. Like, Davos knows Stannis really well, so there's no kind of like gray area to be like, well, he's so loyal because he doesn't really know who Stannis is.
Yeah,
no, he 100% knows exactly who Stannis is very well, better than this other guy. And I guess that actually should be more reassuring about Davos as a person, because he seems to have his eyes very open. Mm-hmm. He's not like pretending to not understand or like worshiping some illusion. Like, he is well aware of who Stannis the man is, and it's just riding with him.
Yeah.
Even after being jailed, he's still just like, I still serve my king, and still calls him his grace, like, and all that shit.
Like, he's very much aware that, yeah, well, I've been jailed because I was going to kill Melisandre, and like, I definitely was about to do that shit.
Yep.
So I'm not here for false reasons. The reason that I'm here is actually quite valid.
He's like, I can't be mad that I'm in jail. I did try to do that shit. Mm-hmm. But it would be so easy for someone who is believes so earnestly that what they're doing is the right thing to do, that often you will find that people will then start to begrudge.
Oh, yeah.
In this case, Stannis, for not being able to see that I was doing the thing I thought was best for all of us, right?
Yeah.
But Davos doesn't do that.
That's basically the vibe of the King's Hand. is I was doing the only smart thing because there's really no other options left to us, and I can't believe that he doesn't see that.
Yeah.
And Davos is like, of course he doesn't see that. Did you know this man at all? That is not how he operates. Come on.
And then, like, breaks down, like, why each of his decisions was just terrible. No, he's not going to let his daughter marry an incest baby. Get out of here.
Yeah. Yep, he would rather see her dead than that.
Mm-hmm. That turns out to be some foreshadowing.
I mean, that isn't part of the book yet.
I mean, yeah, it might not happen. I mean, maybe it doesn't happen in the books.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that everybody is, like, wondering. Is that going to go that way? Because in the show, it's sort of treated in a way that I feel like, I don't know if that's what George would have him do, but who knows?
Yeah.
But, yeah, and like, the thing with that, like, yeah, he knows Stannis really well because, like, to be honest, Stannis isn't that hard to understand.
You know what? That is
frustrating
fair.
to understand, but it's not difficult. He's extremely consistent.
That is a really, really fair point. And I think, you know what, it seems so surprising because so many other characters in these books and in other books, when you're dealing with a king or someone in a position of power, there's so little truth that's ever told to their face. That Davos really stands out as being exceptional in that regard. But you are also correct that Stannis is not a very complicated individual. or maybe complicated isn't the right word, but he's very...
he's not nuanced.
Not particularly, no. He's just very black and white in his thinking. I would imagine if you were an adversary, he'd be really easy to predict, like what his moves would be, right?
Yeah.
Be very easy to read.
And I think that's why he is so drawn to Melisandre, because she sees everything in very black and white terms. I mean, she literally says, like, if a man is not good, then he is evil, and that is all there is to it.
When they're having their conversation, him and Melisandre, and she's talking about, like, the choices we have, it's, you know, day and night. And then you're, like, thinking about Jojen in the last chapter, talking about how, you know, two things can both be true at the same time. And then you come over here to Melisandre being like, no, they cannot be true at the same time.
Can't. And you are sort of pitiful for thinking that.
The other thing, too, about this guy, this hand that gets thrown in jail, is that unlike Davos, because the thing is, he takes these terms, but doesn't get them approved by Stannis,
he
right?
does not.
Just fucking sends them off. And because I don't know, he says he was doing it for, like, best interest of the realm, and these are our best terms and everything. But he had to have known on some level that Stannis would not agree, which is why he does it without his approval, right? And he lacks the, I don't know what else to call it except courage or principle to tell Stannis to his face that this is what I think we should be doing.
Yeah. I think it's like he's hoping that once Stannis sees that Tywin agrees to the terms, that he will be like, oh, okay, now that this option is presented to me and it's already sort of established, maybe I will consider it, versus it being a theoretical possibility.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know?
Yeah, I'm sure that was his thinking for his end game, was that once these terms are sort of accepted, how can Stannis refuse? You know? And then won't I be, you know, thanked for starting this all? But again, just a real miscalculation and a failure to be mindful of who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
You know, just
yeah, because the idea of, like, well, the principles of not wanting my daughter married to an incest baby are certainly going to come second to ending things because it looks like I can't possibly win. And I'm just like, man, you just really underestimate the order of his priorities here and how confident he is that, like, the doing the right thing is its own reward in a sense, you know?
Yeah. And there's, like, the terms, like, all of the, when Davos breaks them down, like, the terms are, there was a, like, he's going to give up his claim, of course, right? And then take back all the incest talk. And then he's going to get to keep Storm's End and Dragonstone. And Davos is like, yeah, except that if Stannis has a son, then the marriage would mean a Dragonstone, because he's going to marry Shireen to Tommen is also part of the terms. And that everything that Shireen would inherit, I guess, would then become Tommen's, and then would then get passed down to Lannisters.
Right.
And I was just like, why would Stannis be like, yeah, that's a good idea?
Because otherwise we're all going to die and lose this war. But nope.
Yeah.
He has not had a complete loss of faith in his cause yet, like this guy has.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is even though the guy it doesn't seem like he got in trouble for it, he clearly doesn't think well of Melisandre and talks a bit about how not only is it impossible to talk to Stannis privately because he's always with her, but that Stannis doesn't seem to even be in his right mind anymore. There's like some hinting that he's not who he used to be, and is either under some kind of influence from her, or is either just, you know, going crazy or whatever, but that he's not well. But when she comes to see him, when she comes to see Davos, this is such a weird interaction.
Well, before we get there, I just want to talk about his, like, the state of his incarceration here, because I think that this is really interesting. He's being kept in a cell. There's no privy, so he is shitting into a bucket. But he's being fed really well. And the cell itself is extremely, like, toasty warm. So overall, the situation, he finds himself in better health than he has been in a while, because he's being adequately fed and cared for, honestly.
Yeah, he's been attended to, because he was quite sick when we saw him last, even though he was on his way to try to kill somebody. He wasn't in the best of health.
Yeah.
And had been really sick from the Blackwater and then being stranded. So he's nursed back to health, even though he's being held.
Yeah.
They could have just thrown him into a nasty cell and let him die, and it would have probably been like a day or two. But no, he's been well cared for, which I think too lends itself to Davos being faithful. He realizes that they could have just let me die down here. But they don't mean, that's not the plan. They are keeping me alive for something.
Yeah.
And he kind of guesses that, you know, they're keeping me alive because they need something from me for a purpose that I don't yet understand. Which then, you know, not too long, he gets a visit. And I don't know if this is the purpose that they kept him alive for. I don't know. But it does make me think, like, maybe that was why. Like, was this the reason they didn't let him die, so that she could make this offer? They had to have known he wouldn't have accepted, but then maybe they thought he would because he'd been jailed. Like, I really don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird moment. I'm just like, you had to know how this was going to go. Yeah, this woman that I was just threatening to kill, I will definitely, like, have sex with her after seeing the creepy shadow baby she gave birth to last time.
I love she shows up and she's just like, is there anything that you need? Do you lack for any comfort?
She's like, well, I know that you don't really like the Lord of Light, so maybe I should just take your light away. Should I just do that?
This was unpleasant. I didn't care for it at all. And it's such a basic thing she did, like, it, you know, just threatening to take the light away. But it was so cruel.
Yeah.
It, you know, and he is, like, his reaction to it, like, is just like, I need it, please don't. And then tells himself, like, I'm not going to beg her. I'm not going to beg her. But you can see it takes a lot of restraint for him not to beg her because being left alone. Because there's a whole bit, too, in this beginning of this about how he hasn't talked to anyone. And he's trying to talk to his jailers a little bit, but, like, they won't acknowledge him. So at first, I think he tried to ask real questions. And then after he realizes that they don't really answer him, he just talks to talk.
I love it so much. So how's the king? How's the war? How's your wife? Anything going on? You guys watch that new Netflix series? I really like that one. It's a bunch of kids with bicycles.
So we have gotten reminded, of how isolated he is. And how desperate he is for some kind of connection. To the point where he's even, like, developed a relationship with the two jailers that's completely one-sided to the point that he has a preference. He prefers one to the other. But threatening to take away the light and leave him down there is just really cruel. And it really undercuts this whole, like, I don't know if it's if it counts as an olive branch or not, but this sort of whole kind of, I've come down to check on you and see what we can do, and
Yeah. Yep. And the so he says that he will, like, talk to her if she will tell him who turned him in. And she just laughs and is like, dude, that's not how this works. I saw in my flames that you were about to come and kill me. And Davos does not doubt her for a moment.
Yeah, he's relieved, too, because he was worried. Like, the alternative was to think that it was Salad or Sand that had turned him in. He really didn't want that shit to be true.
Yeah. And let's see. I want no part of you, or my God, may the seven protect me. Melisandre sighed. They did not protect Gunther Sunglass. He prayed thrice each day and bore seven-pointed stars upon his shield. But when Rior reached out his hand, his prayers turned to screams and he burned. Why cling to these false gods? I have worshipped them all my life. All your life. As well say, it was so yesterday. She shook her head sadly. I thought that was really interesting. She's not even trying to say the gods aren't real. She's trying to say, you're out of touch, old man. Those gods, they retired. And we got new gods now. And it's about time that you admit to yourself that you need to start changing your allegiance because we've got new shit in town. This is no longer Facebook world. This is TikTok world. So just get with it already. That fucking chair. We have got to do something. I cannot get over how loud that is. My lord.
Sorry. I will not be getting a new chair because any money that anybody sends me will go to pay for my cat. So
Rashawn's poor, expensive-ass cat.
My God, this fucking gutter cat that I literally found in the gutter practically. Oh my God, the money. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about this fucking cat. But I'm so glad that she's still here. She scared the shit out of us. But my God, she needs a job or a social security number or something.
You can take out some credit cards in her name and get some real good credit.
Fucking do like Bart did and get a credit card for Santa's Little Helper.
Exactly.
Santos L. Harper. But anyway, apologies for the chair squeaks, guys.
So yeah, she says basically the truth is all around you. You see the dynamic that she sees everything in just a, duality, a dichotomy. And
aren't you fancy?
What? That's not
That's
fancy.
an aren't you fancy? Yeah, no, but she dropped two of them.
I really only dropped two because the first one felt incorrect. So I'm gonna take it. I felt like I used that. The duology is like a 2-book series, right?
Girl.
You says, I'm going to say, see? So I wouldn't be congratulating me all that strongly. And this is when she is just like, there are 2 wars, dude. There are 2 of them. And I'm not just here because I give a shit about who's on the Iron Throne, because that's really not even what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
There is essentially the devil out here with the killing and the cold and the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And we are choosing between those 2 things. And she asks, does your heart burn with the shining light of Rior, or is it black and cold and full of worms? And he just says it's full of doubts. And she's like, I'm glad you didn't lie, because like I'd be able to tell, but also, come on, man. I'm trying to work with you here, and you're just giving me nothing.
You know, I thought that I had an expectation that she would, because from the show anyway, like she was a shadowy, not really trustworthy figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were always like not sure where she was aligned and all this other jazz. But it felt like she was here for a real reason, with the understanding of what was coming down from the north with the others and the whites and all that shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it felt like that was going to really be what the battle was. And then the show like got away from that, and then like got to it again towards the very, very end at the last minute. And I want to say, and I know we don't know because the books aren't finished yet, but I want to see more people understand that there are 2 wars, and that this war she's talking about right now in this passage is the one that is important. And I don't know if that happens in the books, but I kind of hope it does, because it really does make the war for the throne seem wildly like unimportant.
Yeah.
When you have the other chapters, you know, especially like the Jon Snow chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, the whole like, oh, the show started a thing and then they sort of forgot about it and then they brought it back again. I'm like, man, that's like so applicable to so many fucking plot lines and characters in that show. They just decided, well, we're going to kind of ignore that part and we'll bring it back when we feel like it. But for now, we're going to turn it into this weird other soap opera thing.
Right?
Ugh.
Because, I mean, like, honest to God, you guys, if I heard this talk from her coupled with the slightest shred of information about what was going on in the north, I would probably be fucking out here talking about the night is dark and full of terrors. It probably wouldn't take a lot to convert me to the other side.
All right. Well, noted. So this is when he asks, if you could see like the future in your flames, why did you not like warn us about the Blackwater? Because my sons are all dead because you gave them to your flames. And she's like, those were not my fires. And if I'd been there, things would have gone very, very differently. But the king succumbed to pride and the way that people talked about who would be credited with the victory got into his head, and he just let himself make a big fucking mistake. And I think he has learned his lesson.
Yeah. I am so torn, you guys. Because I don't know if I should think she's full of shit right now. Because this is a really great way to spin that shit, right?
Yep.
Like, how can you prove that she's wrong? This shit has already happened. You can't go back in time. You can't redo it. So it's what you would say, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if I were asked, why didn't I see this and fix it? I'd be like, oh, no. That wasn't my fault. That's your fault. That feels like a very, like, a way a religious adherent would reply in a way that then makes what they're selling not be responsible.
Yeah.
But then the other part of me is like, this bitch do no magic, though.
That's the thing, right? Like, she's out here seeing shit in the flames. Nobody gave him up, it turns out. So, like, she had to figure that out somehow. And then she's out here, like, poisoning or drinking poison and not dying.
Making shadow babies,
Yeah, it's a very difficult, like, call as to whether or not you're going to buy her story, because, like, if you don't buy her story, do you have a fucking better explanation for what's happening? Like, I doubt it. Yeah, it's a weird bit. I really do enjoy that, because it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, so-and-so is faking it. And you could even say with the, like, poison, maybe she just, like, built up an immunity to iocane powder, you know? Like, we're gonna do the fucking Princess Bride thing again. But that's not something that explains the shadow baby.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't explain her knowing this guy's coming to kill me, for sure.
Yep. Yep. Like 2 occasions now she has, someone has tried to kill her, and she's still here.
Mm-hmm.
So then she tells Davos basically that she thinks that Stannis is like the guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's like the main guy. And that is why she is here.
I don't know why you saying it like that is so funny.
Because even in, like, a fictional world, I only have but so much respect for people's gods.
He's the guy. That's what somebody said about Jesus once upon a time. No. You don't get it. This is the guy. You know what I'm saying?
But they did, though.
Did.
100% they absolutely did.
Yep.
They're like, no. My man here is connected for real, though. Let me tell you who his daddy is.
I love the idea that somebody, like, saw him up on the cross and was like, who did you say his daddy is? This does not look like that is true. I don't see it for him, actually.
Oh my God, you guys, I apologize.
Oh, man. It's like the memes that were going around with the abortion thing, and, like, people are out here talking about not killing your children the day after we celebrated Easter. I'm just like, God damn.
Fuck, some people just really go for it, don't they?
They do, though.
God damn.
Anyway, so this is when she does the whole, the old maester looked at Stannis and saw only a man. You see a king, and you're both wrong. He is the Lord's chosen. I've seen it, and that shit does not lie. And then Azor Ahai shall be born again amidst smoke and salt to wake dragons out of stone. The bleeding star has come and gone, and Dragonstone is the place of smoke and salt. And I understand that interpretation.
Sure. I mean, the place is called Dragonstone.
Exactly.
And he's going to wake dragons out of stone. I mean, it's right there.
It's right there.
But.
And also, like, this is a place of smoke and salt. I'm like, you could literally say anywhere is of smoke and salt on the coast, though, couldn't you? I mean, I guess the smoke part is meant to be because there had been dragons here, but there aren't any more. So the smoke part could be anything. That's the part that I have the hardest time, like, okay, like, this place is of smoke and salt. I'm not going to say that's wrong, but it's also not the only one. That's not a difficult qualifier to achieve, in my opinion. That's all I'm saying. And then, you do not believe me. You doubt the truth of Rior even now, yet have served him all the same, and will serve him again. And I was like, what does that mean? Served him all the same. How did he serve Rior? Or is it supposed to be that, like, him bringing her to the cave to give birth to her shadow baby was serving him?
I think that, and also just in some of his duties and how, faithful he is, again, to Stannis, that is considered service in some way. Like, as long as Davos is committed to serving Stannis, even if he doesn't believe that he's actually like the Lord of Light Reborn or anything, that counts as service.
Okay, I buy that.
But and you will again. It could just be you'll go back to being in service to Stannis, but that feels like she thinks something else entirely. And then we get the little proposition, which Davos is like, yeah, no, we're not doing all that. But I don't think that that's the entirety of what she means when she says you'll serve him again. I think there's more.
Interesting.
And then with a smile and a swirl of scarlet skirt, she was gone, which is the way I'd like to make my exit. For all time now. So I got to purchase some skirts.
This is that kind of thing where it's like, I would love to be mysterious, but unfortunately I never shut the fuck up. That is my energy. Like, if I was to disappear in a swirl of skirts, it would be like with a cackle and like a little bit of glitter left on the floor behind me. Okay, so she takes off. He looks at the torch, trying to see if he can like see anything in the flames himself, which I thought was really interesting. Because it's, again, he isn't saying she doesn't have any power. He's just saying you're fucked up. And so, he'll experiment. He'll look at this torch and try and be like, is there anything there? But it does not work. He gives himself a headache and his eyes start to water and he just goes to sleep. And then 3 days later, this man is heard screaming. And he gets tossed into the cell. And this man is not used to being manhandled. This whole thing is so unintentionally offensive because he is like, sir, you would not believe what I have been through. They stole all of my clothes. Shit is wild out there. They are just out here taking doublets and slashed velvets and silks like it's just a free-for-all. And I can only imagine that you must have suffered losses also. And he literally says it like that. You must have suffered losses of your own after talking about his clothing. And then when Davos is like, yeah, I lost a bunch of sons. He's like, oh, yeah, my nephew died. And I'm like, what? His clothes are the first thing he mentions and is like truly upset about. But his nephew, now that you mention it, yeah, I did have like some relatives that were burned to death.
Yeah, he is definitely not someone who thinks that he should ever be treated this way or could ever be treated this way by just the fact of who he is, who his family is, and his position. That shit, life comes at you fast. And what else does he say? Oh, when he's talking about losing everything, he also apologizes for how he looks.
Oh my god. I must apologize for my appearance, sir. My chests were lost when the Lannisters overran our camp. I escaped with no more than the mail on my back and the rings on my fingers. And Davos is like, you got fingers though. Which I did find very funny. Like, you still have the rings, I don't even have the fingers, so shut the fuck up.
When he tells him who he lost, his nephew, it turns out to be that his nephew was one of the people leading the ship that his son was on.
Yes.
That made that terror, just not paying attention to anything. So Davos has to be like, oh. But he tells him, that's who his nephew was. Like, oh, it's the motherfucker that basically got my son killed.
Cool. No doubt. Yeah, may the Lord of Light lead them through the darkness to a better world. And Davos in his head is just like, fuck that guy. But does not say it. And then
I think that there's a bit of a stutter, too, where it almost feels like, I don't know if this is true or not, But it feels like when he starts to say May the, like he catches himself and changes it to May the Lord of Light.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know, but that's what it felt like.
I definitely think that's what happened there for sure. Because the Florents, like he's a Florent as it turns out, and they are like very hard for the Lord of Light allegedly. So even if he isn't, he certainly had to fall in line for his family probably.
Right. So yeah, we find out that what he's done, and Davos is just like, word. You did what?
Yeah, this is amazing. He is, first of all, Davos is like, oh shit, this guy really thinks it's over. He calls him defeated. So that's also a major part of what's like influencing his choices here. And he's just like, dude, the man is not ever going to back down. And the guy is like, but that's the wrong choice. And Davos is like, welcome to working for Stannis.
He's like, he's never going to fucking get the throne. And he mentions some stuff that kind of catches Davos up on some things. And we find out that, his fleet's gone except for the Lysinian Salador, who this man says will probably run the first time he sees a Lannister ship, because he's not about that life. He's not doing that anymore. Mm-hmm. And that most of the people that Stannis had have abandoned him and joined Joffrey, or they're dead. And Davos has to be like, even the Lords of the Narrow Sea? And the guy is just like, yeah, those dudes are gone. like this one is dead. This one is burned. This one been bent the knee. Like that shit. That's all. That's a wrap on all that.
That's over. That's canceled.
So Dallas gets this sort of update, and is like, okay, so all that shit happened, and you're in here with me. What did you do? Mm-hmm. Yeah, girl. What did you do?
It's interesting, too, because he says Salador San swore he had a man who could get it to King's Landing, but they found out about it. So, was this the Flames? Or was Salador San this time going, you're going to what now? I mean, I'll take the letter. Don't get me wrong. But that ain't going to who you wanted to go to. I will say that much. I don't know. Considering how much Salador was sure Davos was going to his death, basically, in trying to, like, assassinate Melisandre, I could see Davos being like, well, I'm sure as hell not going to fucking participate in some fucking treachery, so I'm good. Which would be kind of funny, considering that he seems so sure Salador wouldn't be, like, on, like, have their backs. But maybe Salador is a little bit more loyal than he has been giving the man credit for. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, because part of me is just like, I feel like he should just bounce. But I know Salador was promised lots of things, and I feel like he wants to get his shit. He was promised, even though it
was promised.
Even though I really don't think that's in the cards for him. Like, you're not getting paid for that job, yo.
That feels
that's not happening for you. You should cut your losses, get on your ship, and go. Like, why are you even still docked here? Go. But yeah, I'd like to find out if how this guy got betrayed. I don't know if that's something we learn or not, but that's very interesting to think about.
So yeah, this basically is a whole conversation of Davos being like, I'm going to just remind you of this man's whole personality real quick, because it seems like you have just straight forgot who you're talking to.
Also, in the middle of this, he's like, what is that smell?
Oh my God, yes. He calls it the odor. He's, what is that odor? And the fact that he says odor for some reason kills me, because that's like, my grandma used to do that. She would like use words that just felt a little bit too, it was like, she was, what's the word I want here when you're like trying to posture as if you're like a little bit more elevated than you are. You know what I'm saying? I can't think of the wording I want. But it was the same thing as when she would say again, she would say again. And I was just like, Grandma, come on. What is that odor? So yeah, it ends with like him saying he hasn't got a choice. And Davos is like, you are just leaving the choice of dying with honor off the table. And that is the one. So I know that you don't want to acknowledge it, but there it is. Lord Alistair stared at him helplessly for a long moment and then began to weep.
Yep.
He has realized he is on the losing side, and this is all he's got.
When he asks him, when Davos is like, no, he's going to die a king. And he says, and he's just going to take all of us with him? Mm-hmm. Is that what you fucking want? And then this is when I opened talking about this chapter, is just like how stunning his devotion is that he is like, no, but I'm the king's man. And that's just how that shit is. Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess.
He's a real ride or die.
Really, really. That shit is toxic.
There have been a lot of think pieces penned about ride or die mentality, everybody. Davos needs an intervention. Somebody to be like, look, you deserve better.
Trauma bonding. Mm-hmm. That man cut off your fingers and you thanked him and feel like you have to thank him for the rest of your life. Which I mean, I guess I understand that what you were doing normally is handled with like your head getting chopped off. I get it. But also,
Also, I don't.
Exactly. I'm like fucking Meera. It's both.
So that is the end of that chapter. Man, yeah, there is a lot going on here. And there's a bunch of notes again from Austen. And he mentions the Azor Ahai, born again amid smoke and salt. And Austen says, this to us readers sounds more like Dany going into the fire and bringing out dragon eggs. This is one of the things that keeps coming up with Mel and her prophecies. They aren't wrong. It's just that her own biases are misinterpreting them.
Yeah, her access to information. I don't even know if it's a bias.
It's just like, I can't decide about the smoke and salt with Daenerys. Obviously, smoke with like she lit the fire for. I mean, the dragon eggs. Is it the salt? Is like her tears? Maybe.
My opinion is that it doesn't make more sense. It makes as much sense because in the Stannis sort of version of that you have the salt. Right, but you don't really have the smoke, and you have the dragonstone. And then with Dany, you have the dragons coming from stone, and you have the smoke, but you don't really have the salt. So they're like, it just could be either one equally. I don't know if I would think it was a bias. I'm not sure what Austen means. I assume that maybe Melisandre just doesn't know about what's happening because she's not looking in that direction.
Yeah.
Now the question is for me, what I want to know is, because I have absolutely no memory if this comes up in the show, and if it didn't until the last season, I think. But what does Melisandre do if she becomes aware that Daenerys and dragons exist?
That's a good question. Yeah,
because then if she doesn't pivot, then maybe you could say, okay, well, she's biased because she interpreted it this way and she is not letting that go, right? Mm-hmm. But that's what I would be, and I don't know, like timeline wise, I don't know if that's something I can expect to get to, or if that's something the books haven't had a chance to get to yet. So I really don't even know.
Yeah, it's interesting considering like the Targaryen words are fire and blood. That feels very much in Melisandre's wheelhouse, I feel like. So, and then there's another interesting note here. Apparently, so Alistair, who is the one in the cell with him, he is Sam Tarly's grandfather. His daughter is Sam's mother, Melissa Florent. So just a little bit of inside 23andMe over here. And then Alistair mentions 2 instances of madness that have come from attempting magic. And those are Arian Brightfire, who thought... this is not funny, like, really, because I'm sure it was horrible, but he thought he could turn himself into a dragon by drinking wildfire.
Oh, no.
And that shit did not work.
And what is his name?
Arian Brightfire, the Mad King's great uncle.
Did they call him that before he drank that shit or after?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't know which is funnier.
But, maybe they called him that before and he was like, I'll show you just how bright this fire could be. And then
they wouldn't call me this if it wasn't possible.
Exactly. I feel like it's self-explanatory.
And if they call him that afterwards, that's just fucking disrespectful.
So, and then there's a whole thing with Summerhall, which is something that has been not entirely explained, but essentially the story around it, Aegon the Fifth, the Mad King's grandfather, believed he had discovered a way to hatch dragon eggs. And he brought all of the Targaryens to Summerhall, and they did some sort of ritual, and the whole place went up. And Summerhall was, completely destroyed, and the king died, and most of the Targaryens died, and it was, a huge disaster. And there is not a lot of detail about, what exactly went wrong, if it was, maybe somebody fucked with him and, purposely gave him bad information because they were trying to get rid. There's no real detail about it, but yeah, 2 different instances of magic attempts that went so far left that they practically turned around 180. So yeah, but magic in this world is a real tricky proposition. You just never know. It's not like it doesn't, we've seen it work, but sometimes people just don't seem to really know what they're doing and either get lucky or unlucky, depending on the circumstance.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it seems to be, while it is something that exists in this world, it does not seem to be something that's well understood anymore.
Yeah.
Which I guess is part of the deal, is that this is a world that is so removed from the magic that used to exist, whether they're White Walkers or dragons or whatever, that they don't think that they're real anymore, but they are real, and they're reemerging, and people are ill-equipped because we've lost everything we used to know. We've lost so much knowledge. So, yeah.
All right. Well, before we wrap, I just want to say hi to new patrons this week. So everybody get ready, because you know what time it is. It is time for the dignified air horn. So, new patrons are yourmom.com.
Shut up.
That's what it says. Catherine Henneke. Dina. Rosie Webb. Amanda Kyra. And Camille Esposito. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for becoming patrons. Really appreciate you guys. It has been... there's been a little bit of an uptick with patrons after my plea last week. So I really do appreciate all of you who are pitching in to help. And if you haven't yet, and you've been sort of considering it, I just really encourage you to think of it as buying me a Frappuccino, because for some reason that sounds like a lot less, it sounds like a much lower commitment than a monthly payment. Just, you run into me at your Starbucks once a month and you're just like, yo, I love your show. Here's a Frappuccino. And that's also what it is like. So just putting that out there. but I don't like frappuccinos, so don't actually buy me one because I won't want it. Thought I would give
I'm sure there's a drink that you do like.
That's also $5.
Analogy.
Yeah, I guess I like that salted caramel cold brew. I don't know how much that is. A frappuccino is more expensive, I feel like, which is why I selected it, because it's like probably an even $5 for like a grande. But yeah, whatever. You can buy me any kind of coffee. It doesn't even have to be coffee. You can buy me a pastry. Buy me like 2 cake pops. I love me some cake pops. And those shits are like $3 each. Something ridiculous. So buy me a couple cake pops and just be like, enjoy these little tasty treats. I don't know. I feel like I have to recontextualize everything. I'm trying to think if somebody doesn't like Starbucks, what's another option? If you were to buy me like a number 4 from McDonald's, that would be more than what you would spend a month.
Yeah. I was thinking you can get like a biscuit combo, but them joints is like $6.
Yeah, $6-7. Maybe a couple of Supreme Chalupas from Taco Bell would be $5. I think. Something like that.
Ooh,
Taco Bell, though, can surprise me sometimes when they
have
their
that.
prices.
Like, they got like a 5 for $5 thing happening right now.
Oh, okay. So you could buy me 5 something, everybody. Just go ahead and give me that Taco Bell special. That's what I should rename each of the tiers, is like according to like a fast food item. Right now I have it like super fans and starting to get unhealthy fans. But maybe I should be like, this is the one for the 5 for $5 combo. This is the one that's like the number 7 for McDonald's. And just really give it a sort of real world implication there. But anyway, yeah, if you would like to support the show, go to patreon.com/unspoiled. It would be very appreciated. And I think that's about it. Is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap?
No, ma'am. Just hello to all the new patrons and thank you guys.
Yeah, and Rashawn maybe will be accepting donations for her cat. I'll just put that out there.
You guys, this fucking cat.
This bitch cost her $1,000.
It really did. Over $1,000, you guys. My cat, I was working from home. And I was in my little office, and she was making this weird noise, and she was laying. She just, looked weird. I don't know how else to describe it. She wasn't, like, doing anything crazy. She just didn't look right. Mm-hmm. And I called her a little name, and she tried to walk to me, and she was just completely dragging her back leg, and she was yowling in so much pain. Aww. And I am so lucky that I was working from home, and my husband was home, and I live 2 doors from a veterinary emergency hospital. So when I tell you we had her scooped up and in that place in a matter of minutes, and that's the only reason why she's still alive, is because we were able to get her there that fast. They told us that and she's like 15 almost. She had a blood clot that is 9 out of 10 times a fatal occurrence. And we just got super lucky and was able to save her life. But that shit was not cheap.
Oh, man.
And I am in a pickle. But I'm grateful that she's here, and I'll just fucking do what I have to do. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, we just do what we have to do, like everybody else. So,
indeed.
It's fine. But yeah.
Well, if anybody wants to contribute, you could just send it to PayPal and just put a note that it's for Rashawn, and I'll send it on to her. Or Rashawn could do something like a GoFundMe, perhaps.
Oh, I could do a GoFundMe, or you guys can. What's my PayPal, Tosh?
I don't want to say because it's like your email.
Oh, that's right. It is.
So, yeah, I don't want to say. But you can make like a PayPal.me address that you can use and put that out there for people.
Oh, so, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what I use. Mine's paypal.me/unspoiled. So you could do something like that, but you have to set it up. So, whoa. But yeah, just if you guys are wanting to help her out with that, there will be, I'll put like some links in various social media areas so it'll be easy to find by the time this episode comes out.
Oh, that's so nice of
Because
you.
a bitch needs some help, y'all. And I would love to help. But since I am also in a pickle in other ways, I cannot. So
We're all just pickled the fuck up in this bitch.
Lots of pickles. It is a briny situation.
Shit is bright. Oh my fucking God. All right, kids. That's it. Let's wrap it up.
Until next time. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meera and Jojen, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.